Okay.
This is on our YouTube channel, right? Our channel. Live. Okay. Okay, Gu, you're live.
Ok. Eu vou parar de compartilhar minha tela. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay. I'm moving people from where they are to other place.
Uhum.
Yes, now it's okay.
Uhum.
You are showing your own screen, Gustavo.
Ok, e você quer que eu comece já compartilhando a tela, Luiz? Sim?
Sim. Da agenda. Yes, da agenda. Eu vou compartilhar. Ok? Deixa comigo. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the. May I start?
Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm Luiz Eugenio de Souza, co-chair of the Sustainable Health Equity Movement. Just a minute. I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to welcome you all to the General Annual Assembly 2023 of the SHEM. And you can see in the screen our agenda for today. So I'm gonna quickly present our annual report of the activities we developed during the last year, from July 2022 until July 2023. Then we're gonna hear from our partners, the SHEM partners. Then we're gonna have a space for the presentation of the thematic working groups that were active during the last year. Then we're going to the main part of this annual assembly, a panel discussion where we are going to present a declaration, a draft of declaration to be considered by the assembly. We're going to have a period of discussion of this proposal and then concluding remarks of this discussion. Then we move to the activities, a proposal of activities for the upcoming year and the closing remarks. I'd like now to ask Gustavo to share the screen with our annual reports, the activities we have developed. Please, Gustavo.
Okay, 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Next page. There are the organizations that are represented at our steering committee. The Inter-Academy Partnership, the Network for Health Equity of the Americas, the World Federation of Public Health Associations, the World Medical Association, the Fiocruz Foundation, the Planetary Health Alliance, the Framework Convention for Global Health Alliance, the World Dental Federation, and Priceless Health Economics and Decision Science, the Center for Health Economics and Decision. Next, please. We are a much larger, broader network with different organizations that you can see their logos there. Thank you. Next, please. What do we stand for? The Sustainable Health Equity Movement calls for health and environmental policies that are globally sustainable and decolonized to create conditions for all people and future generations to attain the highest attainable standard of health. Next, please. We, as main activities and achievements from the last period, last year, we highlighted a statement on health equity by civil society organizations on the occasion of that 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly. SHEM and other 31 organizations made a call to support the establishment of an international agreement to respond to the ongoing global crisis of unconscionable global and national health inequities, including the effects of climate change. Next, please. We had the renewal of the steering committee. Now we are 3 co-chairs, myself, Atia Musan, co-chair, and Norbert Schwaffer. And then the members of the steering committee that are written in the small box below. Next, please. We reorganized the thematic working groups. Now we have 2 active working groups, human rights and equity, whose aim is to propose ways to advance the rights to health and the development of international law. The governance and equity working group, whose aim is to explore and advocate approaches that capture the potential power of international law to advance health equity, and the equity concepts and metrics, whose aim is to provide a conceptual understanding of equity and its metrics interacting with other working groups. Next, please. We have endorsed a statement led by the World Federation of Public Health Association to the 76th World Health Assembly in May this year. The World Federation of Public Health Association and other organizations, included SHEM, urged member states to address key questions in negotiations for international health regulations, include the implementation of a new treatment or agreement, and how we can best ensure compliance in the onset of the new proposed instrument, prioritizing collective health, well-being, and sustainability. Next, please. We also promoted a joint statement related to the oral health for refugees with the International Dental Federations. The promotion of oral health for refugees is not only a matter of health equity and human rights, but also a key step towards achieving the core principle of sustainable development goal, leave no one behind. We have released 5 issues of the SHEM highlights in our website, in our email lists, and so on, that the activities of SHEM, but also the activities from SHEM's partners and network. Next, please. We enlarged the SHEM highlights with a new session called News from the Field, building on the work of monitoring of civil society organizations in the global health arena, a work that is done by Fiocruz, the International Relations on Health Center of Fiocruz. So we have a bigger highlights document now. Next, please. We had 11 meetings of the SHEM Steering Committee, once a month from this period, 6 co-chairs meetings, and 7 ad hoc meetings, especially for organizing this annual assembly, which were the main stops on the agenda meetings, on the meeting, the agenda of the meetings of SHEMs. Global agenda, building partnerships, strategic guidelines, updates from working groups, book presentations, SHEM structure, SHEM partners presentations, global health governance, national health systems, oral health and refugees, and preparation for this assembly. That's for the report. Thank you, Gustavo, for sharing it. And I'd like now to go to the second item in the agenda, that is the SHEM partners presentations. So I'd like to ask the help of Gustavo to broadcast the video by Luis Solis from the Health Equity Network of the Americas. Let's watch Luis Solis, please. Are you hearing this? Is it mute? I can't hear.
It's not supposed to be mute. Could you mute your phone, your mic, please?
Gustavo, it might be your share settings. Just see if on your end when you share that it said it shares audio as well.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Luis Fernando Solis, and I am the communications coordinator of the HENA. You must be wondering, what is HENA? Actually, the HENA is the Health Equity Network of the Americas, and we are a multidisciplinary platform for research, teaching, and social action with a diversity of strategic visions and policies at a multi-level scale for the management, exchange, and dissemination of knowledge. And we currently are registered at the Center for Research in Nursing and Healthcare, CISES, at the University of Costa Rica, but we include the participation of different members along all the region of the Americas, which includes different centers for research and different universities. HENA is funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and this has allowed us for the past 3 years to focus on the health equity on the region of the Americas. We have been doing this for working on different lines of action. First one is the communication and dissemination line of action, which actually includes different dimensions of communications, having the first one as the coordination of communication, the internal communication, external communication, and corporate communication. For the research and scientific production, we have been also working and developing 6 different profiles for research projects that are in process right now. And also in the networking, we have been creating an important database of 1,395 people along the region and globally, which includes different kind of stakeholders like decision takers, health professionals, researchers, and some others. For the information training and education line of action, we have been developing different kind of activities like webinars, conferences, and different educational activities. But we also have one of our strategic objectives is directly focused on health equity training. This has been possible since we have been proposed a knowledge model, knowledge management model that is being based on health equity as the center, but includes different elements that like continuing education, dissemination and outreach, and the scientific production, which are also based on different important elements like capacity building, knowledge strengthening, and the promotion of young researchers. By this way, we have been addressing different topics like universal health, primary health care, integrated care centered on individuals, families, and communities, cancer, system thinking, health environment and climate change, health systems and services. And all of them and some others that we have been addressing are being addressed by the social determinants of health, human rights, and human development lens. So this has been possible. This has allowed us to approach to different population groups of interest, like pregnant women, migrant populations, and people living on the street. That has allowed us also to continue working on different methodologies of work, which are based on participatory and collaborative construction approaches, with emphasis on local and regional experiences for global exposure, but having a continuous and close communication and dialogue for common agreements with all of the strategic partners that we have been working with for the last 3 years. Some of them that I can mention right now are the World Health Organization, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, as I mentioned before, the World Federation for Public Health Associations, the Swiss Tropical and Public Health, SISTAC for the System Thinking Accelerator, IFIC as the International Foundation for Integrated Care, whose Latin American hub is being led by our group in Costa Rica. And also, we have been working with ALASAC, IS Global, the Colombian Consortium on Climate Change, the Lancet Countdown, PAHO, of course, with 2 different departments, the Division of Health Systems and Services Department, and the Evidence and Intelligence for Action in Health Department, also, as well as the Lancet Commission on Cancer and Health Systems. And of course, the Sustainable Health Equity Movement, the SHEM. So I am very happy to be able to share with you all this work that we have been doing and that we continue doing on the region of the Americas. And we invite you to work closely with us. So I thank you very much for this opportunity. And I remain attentive in case you have any questions or comments, or in case you have any initiative that you would like to work jointly with the HENA. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Excellent presentation by Hannah. We'd like to thank you, Luis Solis, and all the Network of Americas. And now I'd like to invite you to watch the presentation by Ruth Marby, from the Executive Committee Chair of the Framework Convention on Global Health Alliance. Please, let's watch Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth Mabry, member of the Executive Committee for the Framework Convention on Global Health Alliance. And thank you for having us today. Our statement includes a brief about the Alliance and about the work of the SHEM Human Rights Working Group. I'll give a brief overview about the Framework Convention on the Global Health and our Alliance, as it provides a useful background to the efforts of the working group. The Framework Convention on Global Health Alliance was established on Human Rights Day in 2017. We are made up of individuals and organizations who are working together towards the Framework Convention on Global Health. We are a Geneva-based NGO looking for broad engagement with individuals and organizations around the world to become members and partners in our efforts, especially civil society and community-based organizations. So what is the FCGH, the Framework Convention on Global Health? It's a proposed rights-based treaty for sustainable health equity. It builds on existing treaties that codify the right to health to better implement rights-based approaches to health. It proposes clear standards and mechanisms to implement human rights principles in health, like equality, participation, accountability, and international cooperation and assistance. It also outlines the need to resource the right to health and ensure accountability in all sectors and for all actors. So why now? The current moment is ripe for advocating for the Framework Convention on Global Health. The pandemic treaties are expected to conclude next year, but a broader treaty is needed to respond to the pandemic of health inequities. Discussions around a Framework Convention on Global Health will contribute to highlighting and addressing structural problems arising from an inequitable and unstable global economy. We already know the power of a health treaty. The Framework Convention on Tobacco Control was ratified nearly 20 years ago by more than 180 countries. Since then, there has been a dramatic impact on the ground. So what does a new treaty on health equity bring? Let me give you two examples. First, the Sustainable Development Goals. The Framework Convention on Global Health could contribute to the No One Will Be Left Behind pledge of the SDGs. For example, it could catalyze health equity programs of action, equitable distribution of resources, and inclusive planning requirements. Together, these could speed up progress towards the health-related targets, since the largest room for health gains are for people who suffer the worst health and most disadvantages. Another example is related to universal health coverage. The main right to health treaty, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, obliges countries to use the maximum of their available resources towards realizing the covenant rights. This obligation could be clarified by the Framework Convention on Global Health by describing increased financing through domestic and international health financing frameworks, and by requiring proactive measures to reach marginalized populations, and by requiring equitable distribution of resources, both financial and human resources. So what are we, the Alliance, calling for? The framework advocates for the Framework Convention on Global Health are calling governments to adopt a World Health Assembly resolution committing states to begin negotiating the Framework Convention on Global Health. Or if states are not ready for this step, then we are calling for the adoption of a World Health Assembly or WHO Executive Board resolution creating a multi-stakeholder working group on the Framework Convention on Global Health, paving the way for its negotiations. Another approach would be through the United Nations. The Human Rights Council, or better still, the UN General Assembly, should adopt a resolution calling UN agencies to launch a timely process to negotiate the Framework Convention on Global Health. Meanwhile, we are also calling states to use regional and international forums, such as the WHO regional committees, regional economic blocs, the African Union, to call for WHO and United Nations action on the Framework Convention on Global Health. In addition to the above, our alliance is working on building a movement for the Framework Convention on Global Health through global and regional networks, particularly in Africa, Europe, and South America. For more information, please visit our website, at fcghalliance.org or contact Eric Friedman or myself. Now that you have some background on the Framework Convention on Global Health and our alliance, I'll let Lee brief you about the work of the Human Rights. Thank you.
We see you have very strong partners, HENA, the Framework Convention on Global Health. But before proceeding, following with other SHEM's partner, I'd like to hand over to our co-chair, Norbert Schwaffe, who will introduce the working groups, or the thematic working groups, and then we come back later for the other SHEM's partners. Please, Norbert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luis, for giving me the floor. Now, I call upon Andres to present the governance equity working group.
Hi, my name is Lee Haynes. I'm a member of the Framework Convention on Global Health
Gustavo,
Alliance.
now is Andres Cortinho in live. Please, Andres.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Could you stop and share your screen, please? Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Live is supposed to be the second presenter.
thank you, Dr. Joffre. And thank you, Luis and Andre, for facilitating this meeting. Good morning to everyone. My name is Andres Coitinho. I'm connected from Uruguay, Montevideo. And I'm pleased to share with you some messages on behalf of the thematic working group on global governance and health equity. Since our last General Assembly, we have continued working on a thematic focus group, focusing on governance and equity with approximately 15 active members of the SHEM community. Our main characteristic is that we are public health experts, researchers, and public health advocates who want to support the movement and its members in the advocacy for more robust democratic global health governance mechanisms. In doing so, we understand that we have a common ground that drift from and comes from SHEM's initial statement and relates to that original statement. We understand that sustainable health equity should be the moral and ethical value driving national, regional, and global efforts to strengthen governance capacities. We also understand that democratic and effective governance for health transcends the public and private spheres, and it also transcends health and non-health sector interests, and it is a must for good governance in any society. And we also have a common ground from the SHEM statement and our work as a thematic group. It is that good governance for health could only be achieved if we integrate the health and the equity perspective into the policy making and into the decision-making processes at all levels. That includes a national, local, and especially in the global forum. That is part of our interest as a network here. We are a young thematic group. They call it that way. We only have been working since the beginning of the movement, but we are still working in defining these ideas and actions. But we also need a broad engagement of SHEM members and supporters. We could say that there are three sides of a coin, if even coins have three sides, that identify as our métier for the supporting for this thematic group. The first one is the opportunity of identifying advocacy actions and advocacy opportunities. As an example, the global discussion of the international negotiation body that it is negotiating the new instrument of pandemic prevention that our colleagues from the framework has just mentioned, that is an opportunity of engagement for the movement. And in line with the human right thematic work and with the framework convention alliance, we also call to elevate the debate to a broader, higher level towards what we say that is a paradigm shift in global health governance. And that includes a direct and active engagement of the Global South voices. The second challenge for us is an all and well known. It is health system transformation and governance capacity strengthening that should be at our core efforts, advocacy efforts. Some of our colleagues at the thematic group are going to be participating in this assembly. They always share with us this idea that we need a holistic paradigm for implementing health system governance strategies at national and local levels. We also have to take care and pay attention to that. And finally, we, as a recommendation from the steering committee, we are also incorporating in our exchanges some of the discussions on global public goods, because we think that there is a need for reinterpretation of what these global public goods means for us in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, just to wrap up these ideas and the work we do at the governance thematic working group, we'd like to invite your networks and organizations to engage and to participate in this discussion and these efforts. You can always contact us, and we will forward you the information to join in our monthly virtual meeting. But we also, additionally, since last year, we have been using a brief survey to capture some ideas and concerns regarding global governance and equity from SHEM members and from SHEM supporters. And I would like to invite you all to look to that survey, to share that survey among your colleagues, and among those you think that would relate and could possibly engage with the work on governance advocacy. I'm going to share that in the YouTube channel. That's correct, Andre? Should I do that? Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So that's a brief presentation of the state of the art of this working group. We are still needing the support of member states because we are here to support you. We want to play that role. We want to be a supporting group for the members, for the associations, for the networks that are part of the SHEM. So thank you all very much on behalf of the entire thematic group.
Thanks for the insight. So I call upon Liz to present the human rights equity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lee Haynes. I'm a member of the Framework Convention on Global Health Alliance, and I'm also part of the SHEM Human Rights and Equity Working Group. And I want to take just a few minutes to talk about the major activity of the working group over the last year. First off, I want to just quickly share the mission of the Human Rights Working Group. Our mission is to explore and advocate approaches that capture the potential power of international law to advance health equity. And that's what we've done with our major activity for this year, particularly focusing on the power of international law with the statement and call to action that we developed. This statement and call to action has a total of 11 actions. It targets a diversity of actors, especially UN and WHO entities. And finally, you can see the statement on the SHEM Working Group's webpage. Importantly, this statement has 4 categories of action. It focuses on international legal instruments, such as the Framework Convention on Global Health proposal. It also considers accountability frameworks for the right to health And it puts forth ideas for funding and capacity building for people on the ground, governments, workers to be able to implement several of the things that the statement calls for. And with regard to moving forth on the statement, because we didn't just want to state things, we made calls for action. And so we have thought about keys for implementation of the statement in terms of doing the work of advocacy and also doing the work of getting governments and international organs to be able to make the decisions to put the calls for action to work. And so here are some of what we have thought about is important for implementation. Some of it is outreach, some of it is inreach. So we have to think about how to do outreach to multilateral institutions like the WHO, like UN bodies. We have to think about how can we gain support from governments who are member states who would need to, adopt some of what we're proposing. And also thinking about the inreach, we should do individual outreach amongst ourselves on the advocacy steps. We should kind of brainstorm and think about how do we leverage our own resources, SHEM capacities, contacts, in order to be able to reach some of the goals that you can kind of see across the bottom of this slide, which are WHA resolutions on the right to health, a right to health capacity fund, and ultimately advancing and achieving a framework convention on global health. And so looking ahead, what at least the working group wants to do is to start beginning this individual outreach, to start catalyzing some of the work towards the statement. And then as part of that work, we want to think with SHEM members about how we can do outreach to government officials, who our contacts are to do that work, thinking about who as part of the SHEM can develop and deliver statements to the World Health Assembly, at UN meetings, and finally, just getting the word out and sharing information about SHEM, about the actions called for in this statement, and what people can do to support the work. We hope to hear from some of you who have questions or who want to participate in this work. Please check our website for contact information. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining the General Assembly.
Okay, thank you for the insight. So now we give the floor to Jamal to give you information about the next step.
Greetings, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you here at the Assembly today, and I'm excited to give you a brief overview of the Sustainability in Dentistry project by the FDI World Dental Federation. I'm Hassan Jamal. I'm a pediatric dentist and assistant professor in pediatric dentistry, a member of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, and a member of the World Dental Federation Sustainability in Dentistry Task Team. I'm also a founder and leading member of the Saudi Sustainable Oral Healthcare Initiative. The World Health Organization refers to climate change as the biggest health threat of the 21st century. And paradoxically, the global healthcare sector plays a fundamental role into this, not only impacting the environment, but also impacting the economic and societal aspects, which in return, paradoxically, impacts the human health. Therefore, there is an urgent need for the healthcare profession to acknowledge responsibility for its impact and to ensure high-quality, environmentally sustainable care for all. Few words about the FDI. The FDI is a non-profit organization with more than 120 years of experience. It serves as a principal body for more than 1 million oral health providers across the globe. Aligning with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals and the FDI's Vision 2030, the FDI have been vocal about sustainability ever since they released the first policy statement at the FDI General Assembly meeting in Madrid in 2017. Later, a sustainability group was then formed, and that task team, as you can see, these are the current members of the team. Since launching in 2021, the project has gained momentum, raising awareness among dental professionals, the industry, and the public as a whole to reduce the environmental impacts of the oral healthcare sector. We understand that environmental sustainability in healthcare involves multiple stakeholders and requires multiple sectorial actions to succeed. And we therefore, through evidence-based research, the project aims to provide valuable educational tools and resources to create a positive environmental and societal impact across the board. The project united stakeholders by releasing the first consensus statement on environmentally sustainable oral healthcare, tackling various challenges, opportunities, barriers, and enablers to reach a sustained oral healthcare system. The project is also gaining more traction and support from industry partners such as Dentsply Sirona, Helion, Colgate, TP, P&G, and recently Sunspy Limited. There are more than 125 supply chain stakeholders who signed the pledge for sustainability. It encompasses increasing awareness about sustainability, promoting reduce and recycle solution, promoting sustainability as a collective responsibility, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and finally, harnessing science and technology, along with innovation to achieve the SDGs. Additionally, more than 265 dental practices have registered for the Sustainability Toolkit, a tool that is interactive, user-friendly, directed toward dental professionals to take serious steps to reduce their environmental impact and earn sustainability stripes and awards along the way. There are other resources that aim to increase the patients' and the community's awareness about sustainability in dentistry, such as this infographic depicting example, which is translated in more than 6 languages. There are various other projects that are currently a work in progress, especially the ones revolved around education, especially for this year's, which will be announced soon. So I would encourage those interested to watch for this space. We had a consensus on a definition, which I would like to leave you with, of what is a sustainable oral healthcare. And it was defined as the provision of equitable, ethical, high quality, inclusive, and safe care with appropriate, effective, and efficient use of resources. Through this, the healthcare opportunities of current and future generations are respected and protected by actively minimizing the negative environmental impact, a holistic way of looking at it. And we believe that together, collectively, not only we can reach, but achieve these higher goals. And with that, I thank you all for your attention, and I'll leave you with the contact details of the FDI for more information and my personal details. Thank you all.
Thank you for the insight. As you may know, SHEM is a network of network. Now I'm giving the floor to Peter to give insight about the inter-academy partnership. Thank you.
Trieste, Italy. My name is Peter McGrath, and I'm the coordinator of the Inter-Academy Partnership, or IAP, based here in Trieste, where we are hosted by the World Academy of Sciences twice. IAP is the global network of 150 academies of science, medicine, and engineering, working together to provide independent expert advice on scientific, technological, and health issues. We also have a secretariat in Washington, D.C., hosted by the US National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. IAP has been engaged with SHEM from its very beginning. Indeed, we were among the organizations that signed the original letter to the UN Secretary General that marked the start of our movement. At this point, I'd also like to extend our sincere thanks to Jorge Nera of Argentina, who has faithfully represented IAP on the steering committee of SHEM, but who unfortunately has other engagements and commitments, so cannot be with us here today. I would especially like to congratulate him on his leadership of the SHEM Thematic Working Group on Global Governance and Equity. From the IAP perspective, there are 4 main activities of relevance to SHEM that I would like to draw your attention to today. First is our major regional to global project on climate change and health. This project unfolded through our 4 regional networks in Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia Pacific, each of which considered the implications of climate change and health specific to their region. The 4 reports that were published in late 2021 and early 2022 were then synthesized into a global overview with recommendations to policymakers. This overview report was launched in May 2022 and subsequently presented at major meetings such as COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh where IAP had a slot in the WHO Pavilion. I'd like to think that IAP can claim some credit for the fact that this year's COP28 in Dubai will include a health day, showing that policymakers are finally becoming aware of the climate change and health nexus, and that dealing effectively with the causes of climate change can provide health co-benefits. The IAP Climate Change and Health Project is now continuing in another form. In collaboration with Save the Children, we are collating a series of case studies of approaches to problem solving and policies that have been used to address the interlinked challenges of climate change and health. We expect this book of case studies to be published by the end of the year. I believe this project in particular, by highlighting practical examples in this space, will provide answers to the question posed to participants of this SHEM General Assembly, i.e., how can we move sustainable health equity as a principle to an action-oriented agenda addressing simultaneously environmental sustainability and health equity? That's not to say that the following snapshots of IAP's work do not also contribute to this movement towards solutions and action. The next activity I wanted to highlight was a continuation of IAP's long-term collaboration with the UK Academy of Medical Sciences. In this case, the chosen topic was Global Health Inequalities, Research for a Fairer Future. Following a series of online workshops, guided by a group of experts appointed by IAP and UK AMS, we jointly published the Global Health Equalities Research for a Fairer Future report, as well as a shorter communique that synthesized the main messages. These messages are that we need to engage with communities, including marginalized populations. We need to collect and use data to understand health inequalities and their root causes. We need to identify what works to reduce inequalities and to really make a difference. We need to prepare for the next pandemic or health crisis. And if we collaborate, including across disciplines, we can achieve more. The report and associated communique were released in September 2022, and I know that Jorge Nera shared them with the SHEM community. With regard to urban health, IAP convenes an urban health working group of experts nominated by their member academies. Recently, this group guided the development of a report. What are National Academies of Science and Medicine doing in relation to urban health and its broad determinants? This was published in October 2022. The proposition underpinning this project was that academies have been engaged in a range of urban health scientific endeavors, but their orientation to urban health may be underdeveloped or under-recognized. By strengthening this orientation, a major opportunity exists for academies to grow their relevance to societal problems and build their profile, effectiveness, and impact. In parallel, the IAP statement on urbanization in low and middle income countries explains how the current trend of urbanization in the developing world has different root causes compared to what happened in industrialized countries spurred by the Industrial Revolution. Therefore, the responses to urbanization must be different. This IAP statement, endorsed by more than 50% of our member academies, lays out some recommendations on how this could be achieved effectively, of course, also with knock-on effects for public health. Finally, IAP developed, published, and presented a call for a global health data sharing framework for global health emergencies. This has influenced discussions within the WHO on the issue of data for pandemics and has informed discussions on the UN Pandemic Treaty. I hope these few activities have provided a flavor of the kinds of actions in the science health policy arena that IAP is undertaking. Of course, I focused on those most relevant to SHEM, but I also invite you to visit our website, www.interacademies.org, or sign up to our e-bulletin to get a full picture of our projects and programs. Together with our partners such as SHEM, we hope that we can make the voice of science heard in policy-making discussions especially when it comes to considerations of global health. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for the feedback related to EAP. Now, I'm passing the floor to our co-chair, Atia, to present the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Norbert. Thank you, everyone. That was a very interesting view of all of our partners and our working groups. My name, as Norbert has said, is Atia Mossam. I am one of the co-chairs of SHEM and a public health physician based in South Africa. And I've been given the responsibility of chairing the panel session for this afternoon, or this morning, or this evening, depending where in the globe you are with us today. I'm very excited today for us to have a large group of panelists who come to us with very different perspectives. We have people working in the health field, people working in climate change, and people who are working at the intersection of climate change and health. And I'm hoping that we can get a varied view of the issues that are facing us in terms of achieving sustainable health equity in the current situation that we find ourselves in. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Aruchu Castro, who is going to take us through this assembly statement. Aruchu is the Health Equity Network representative on the SHEM Steering Committee for the Americas, and she's also a professor of public health at Tulane University. Aruchu, over to you.
Thank you very much. Sustainable health equity means achieving and maintaining equitable health outcomes for all people, including for future generations. It encompasses, next slide, please. It encompasses 1, realizing the right to health so everyone can access a full range of health services, regardless of their demographic characteristics. 2, addressing the underlying determinants of health, like clean water and a healthy environment necessary for leading a healthy life. And 3, fulfilling a wide range of human rights, including economic, social, cultural, civil, and political rights. Achieving sustainable health equity requires that public services be designed and provided, and that public policies be developed through empowering, inclusive, participatory, and accountable processes and mechanisms. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the extreme inequity in access to diagnostics, treatment, and vaccines, resulting in a per capita death toll 31% higher in low-income countries compared to high-income countries. The pandemic also revealed stark within-country inequities, both in access to COVID-19 vaccines and mortality rates due to COVID-19. In addition, the world is facing a syndemic of obesity, climate change, and undernutrition, with the worst outcomes experienced by populations in low and middle-income countries, particularly those living in poverty and minoritized ethnic groups. Sustainably attaining the highest possible level of health for all people everywhere requires addressing socioeconomic justice, including in the context of environmental sustainability. Nearly half the global population, 3.6 billion people, live in places highly vulnerable to the climate crisis, with deaths from floods, droughts, and storms 50 times higher compared to the least vulnerable regions. Given that countries with the greatest GDP contribute the most to global fossil fuel emissions, those most responsible for the climate crisis need to cancel debt and compensate for loss and damage for the harm experienced by communities most impacted and least responsible for our planet's climate peril. Polluters, both at the corporate and the national level, must pay. The Sustainable Health Equity Movement calls for health and environmental policies that are globally sustainable and decolonized to create conditions for all people and future generations to attain the highest attainable standard of health. In 1978, health leaders advocated for primary health care as the means to achieve the ambitious goal of health for all by 2000. But the debt crisis and subsequent global economic policies soon sidelined health equity, universal access, intersectoral action, and participatory approaches. Next one. We urge governments to incorporate the right to health in all policies and practices, both domestically and in international agreements and policies and actions with extraterritorial impact, and to cut carbon emissions both at home and abroad immediately. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arachu. And so without further ado, I'm now going to call on our panelists, and in the name of equity and in the recognition that we are leaving this world for generations that come after us, we have made a concerted effort to ensure that we have emerging practitioners speaking on the panel today. And the first speaker today is Alessandro Berioni, who is a public health physician in training and the chair of the Young World Federation of Public Health Associations. Alessandro, over to you.
Thanks, Satia, for the kind invitation. And I'm so happy to be here today and looking at all these amazing statements and efforts, joint efforts on health equity. I want just very quickly present just Young WFPHA, which is Young World Federation of Public Health Association. And we started 6 months ago to aggregate people internationally and to endorse, empower people, young people that are those that sometimes needs more support in the equity meaning. So yeah, what I would like to do, just looking at the declaration, I think it's great. And I do believe that we should carry on, I mean, restricting and strengthening this kind of restriction for private sectors that carry on pushing carbon emissions and inequalities such as people exploitation worldwide. So it's a good point, and we should try to, I think, find an action plan to write things down and understand how people globally can battle and fight this thing together. So we would like to be like a mean that everyone could use for engaging young professionals and students worldwide in public health. And at the same time, we would like to use this tool to facilitate also the engagement with governments, to facilitate their capillary engagement in this effort. And so finally, just to be quick, I want to say that we can offer as young professional for this declaration, which is great, speaking about operationalizing and actioning, I mean, being more concrete. Young people, I think, can facilitate the communication worldwide. So, for example, utilizing social media. I'm talking also about TikTok, which is not very professional, but I think that many young people, and I'm not speaking of me because I'm not young anymore, but people in their 20s, in their 15s, in their teenagers use a lot TikTok, and it's a great tool that we need to harness. We need to harness because there are lots of contents that could be more educational that are at the moment currently. So I don't know, also involving influencers. This is something that I think we should try thinking about, to engage more with young professionals, with young people, younger people, to let them feel aware and part of this discussion, and yeah, and to advocate for health on a greater scale. So yeah, I don't know, just using these new technical tools, social media, also tailoring education with AI. We have great tools at hand at the moment, and I think if we leverage on that and we scale them up, we have great opportunities to tackle and cope with these great issues we are trying to fix. And yeah, so I'm open just to finish it like this, to create an action plan together and have a working group to discuss together, and also recruiting young people worldwide to brainstorm some innovative ideas to communicate these social issues and environmental issues we need to fix. Thanks everyone for the invitation.
Thank you, Alessandro. I think I picked up two things from this. So for the next assembly, Alessandro will be doing our TikTok campaign. So we're going to call on you with your youthful energy. And the next is the offer of the working group. I think we may take you up on that, to have a working group of emerging professionals to start thinking about some of these issues and having very concrete discussions around how we take this movement forward. Thank you. So I'm going to hand over now to a gentleman who you heard from just a few minutes ago, Hassan Jamal. So I'm not going to go through the entire introduction, but Hassan, for those who maybe have joined us late, is an assistant professor in pediatric dentistry, and he's a member of the FTI World Dental Federation. Hassan, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for your invitation. It's really a delight for me to be with you here today, at least shedding the light from a perspective of healthcare provider, right? And I would just written a couple of things that I would like to address in regard to the statement. Now, the statement argues that ensuring sustainable health equity for all people now and in the future requires tackling issues of socioeconomic justice and environmental sustainability. And we know that achieving these goals is rather difficult, yet it is essential to improve the lives worldwide. And on that regard, I agree that sustainable health equity should be a global priority. All people obviously deserve the healthcare services of and clean environment, living healthy and decent lives, regardless of their income, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnicity. And again, as mentioned, we know that COVID-19 pandemic was a great lesson, demonstrating unequal access to healthcare services, costing life, exacerbating inequalities, and that's within and between countries. We know that environmental issues such as climate change, air pollution, food insecurities, all disproportionately impacts the world's poorest communities. And therefore, I believe that there must be active steps can be taken to create a more sustainable and equitable health systems policies. So governments, as we know, and corporations must address the root cause of health inequalities, and especially environmental damages, meaning rethinking economic policies that prioritize growth over equity, reducing carbon emissions for all major emitters, and ensuring that the most vulnerable communities are included and their voices are included in the solution. And we also mentioned that a transition to healthcare services, universal access to participatory intersectorial approaches as advocated in 1978 remains as essential today by enriching or enshrining the right of health in all domestic and international policies and requiring that both public and private polluters to cooperate. Only then we can start to make real progress towards sustained healthy equity and health, a sustained healthy community. A healthier, greener, and more just world is attainable, right? If we make equity and sustainability these guiding principles in global health and in environmental governance. Now, as healthcare professionals, we are responsible members of the community. And when we find anything that tackles or, endanger or doing harm to anyone, anything, right, we step forward to do actions. So I call for all healthcare professionals to join us and to really push forward for this. Change takes time, but action is always now. And together we can reach and execute and achieve these goals. So thank you for that. And thank you for the invitation. And I hope we can all join forces. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. I think your last statement is very powerful. I think it's something we need to remember, is that change begins in our little circles at the time. And so that's the only way we can bring about global changes, if we change the people around us. And so, yes, as a healthcare professional, I fully agree. We should be getting more healthcare professionals who are the ones dealing with some of the impacts of these inequities on the front line. Thank you so much. I am going to move on to a friend of our organization as well, Jose Paganini from Argentina, who's speaking as an independent voice and who will be taking us through his thoughts on our assembly statement. Jose?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hello? Can you listen to me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I'm listening all the nice presentations. They are really very, very important. So listening that, we feel optimistic. But then when we see the other side of the reality world, we are really very pessimistic because the problem is still there. The problem is facing us. Poor people are still there. People not receiving health care are still there. So in this process, something is wrong. So I think that we must be very strong how we can move ahead into the applying our knowledge to solve the problem of non-equity. So my contribution to our discussion is, okay, everything is okay, but we need to move ahead in more internal evaluation to see what happened with our advice. We advise to politicians, but countries still are not doing good things to all the people. So I think that listening at what is going on in our present life, we need to go ahead and have a commission to knock the door of politicians, saying, listen, mister, look what's going on near you. God looks about what is going on poverty people. And also knock the door to religious leaders. What are doing the religious leaders that were created for good life to everybody, and still the problem is here. So my final comment and my final reaction to what's going on here is we need to evaluate ourselves to see what's going on and to be very, very strong to people that apply politics, because corruption is still there. Lack of control of money is there. So for one part, I congratulate all the presentations. And for another part, I feel very pessimistic because we still don't find the real solution to equity for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. I think you are rightly so to be pessimistic in some ways, but I think it is also optimistic that we have quite a range of people from across the globe, from different sectors, having this discussion together. And hopefully this is the start of a movement that actually moves and that gets us going, gets some change going in this world. Without straying from our program, I'm going to hand over now to Alia Kaji, who actually was applauding as Jose was speaking, and I thought that's actually really a good segue, because Alia is a public finance campaigner from 350 Africa, and I'm sure she is going to echo a lot of your sentiments, Jose. So Alia, over to you.
Thanks so much, Atia, for the invite to be a part of this. I think I wanted to start off by saying that the world was unequal long before the climate crisis, but the impacts today have a compounding effect like never before. We know that the impacts are felt worse by the countries and the individuals that are least responsible for higher emissions. It's been mentioned already. But we also know that the impacts are disproportionately carried across lines of race, class, and gender. And we know that these impacts are felt with those with the least resources and capacity to respond or build back better. But in reality, those who are facing these challenges are forced to face storm after storm and often paycheck to paycheck. We are in a world where gross inequality means that those who can afford to respond will. Those who can afford solar panels to pay for their homes or to power their homes or private healthcare will all be better off. Those who can afford to can protect and access their human rights. This is not only the reality between nations, but within nations as well, where the cost of living has risen so dramatically, affecting people's ability for food, warmth, and healthcare. We know the injustice of higher GDPs contributing the most to emissions, but what's lesser known is that they continue to fund the exploration and extraction of fossil fuels, particularly in the global south. We all know that countries of the global north have also agreed to providing hundreds of billions of dollars to the global south to respond to climate change. But did you also know that these finances often come in the form of loans that the global south countries need to pay back and continue to stay indebted for many, many years? These funds often come with conditions that include reducing public spending in order for the countries to pay back their debt. These cutbacks are also found in the healthcare sector, and this happened in South Africa during COVID as well. Statements such as the ones we've heard today are critical and powerful in their systemic understanding of global challenges and calling out of what hinders progressive action. Yes, we need to prioritize the health of all equally. Yes, we need to cancel debt so that countries are not shackled to planning their national economies around who to pay back in the global north. Yes, we need funding not only to address the causes of climate change, but more importantly, the impacts of losses and damages of climate change. Yes, we need more public participation in natural processes so that the lived experiences of those who are the worst impacted can better inform solutions that are fit for purpose, and that these processes are accountable to those who need them, the public. We can only win these battles if we stand together in movements of solidarity with those most affected, and to achieve the big changes we need for social justice by speaking truth to power, like Jose said. In order to achieve a just transition away from a high-emitting economy to a low-carbon and socially resilient society, we need more and more sectors banding together to demand these changes by calling for the removal of structural barriers to equity and justice, to achieve systemic transformation and to find sustainable alternatives by putting people at the center of decision-making that affects them. So in ending, I always like to say, and as we in the sector like to say, climate justice is social justice. Thanks, Atya.
Thank you, Alia. And I'm very well aware as we sit here today, my electricity is brought to me by my own installed solar power in a country that is struggling with energy. And that just reinforces how sometimes we are removed from the struggles of the people on the ground, because we are able to develop our own solutions or pay for our own solutions to get around some of the impacts that many, many people are dealing with in our countries. So I'm now going to hand over to back to Gustavo, who is going to be sharing a video with us from a gentleman who really needs no introduction, Sir Michael Marmot from the Institute for Health Equity, University College London. Gustavo?
Countries had very different experiences during the COVID pandemic. To understand these experiences, we need to see where the countries were before the pandemic. And to take two examples, the United Kingdom and the United States. In the years pre-pandemic, life expectancy in both big had stopped improving at anything like previous rate. In fact, in the US, life expectancy fell for 3 years, 2016 to 2018. And in the UK, life expectancy, the rate of increase of life expectancy slowed dramatically, and health inequalities increased. In other words, if you look at people by where they live and look at where they live by level of deprivation, there's a social gradient. The more deprived, the shorter the life expectancy. And that gradient got steeper. And there were increased regional differences. And further, life expectancy for the poorest people was getting worse pre-pandemic. It was predictable that the pandemic would expose the underlying inequalities in society and amplify them. And that's what happened. We saw in the UK a social gradient in mortality from COVID-19 that was very similar to the social gradient in all-cause mortality, but slightly steeper for COVID-19 because people in the most deprived areas were employed in frontline occupations and living in overcrowded households. It's very important to learn lessons from this experience. Otherwise, we'll repeat the problems. My own view is that, and I published this in a report we did in Britain called Build Back Fairer, the COVID-19 Marmot Review, is that the increased social and economic inequalities, the disinvestment in public services that went along with austerity and reduced public funding,
Thank you, Gustavo. I think those are sentiments that we are all very familiar with, especially around the COVID-19 and the inequities, as Alia also highlighted that these inequities are not new. It is just something that has now been brought to stark reality by the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm now going to hand over to Harsha Dev, who is also speaking to us as an independent friend of SHEM, but has extensive experience in health systems and recently in climate resilient health systems. Harsha, over to you.
Thank you very much, Atia. Good afternoon, and thank you for everybody streaming in for the launch of the Sustainable Health Equity Movement's launch on. And I wanted to, as I address you today, I'm drawing from my personal journey growing up in South Africa, working across nations like Nigeria, Botswana, Ethiopia, and my recent involvement with the Canadian healthcare system. In South Africa, a stark reality looms over us as we bear witness to extreme inequality, a fact echoed by the fact that we are ranked with the highest inequality rate globally. And this inequality permeates every aspect of our healthcare system, affecting individuals that are seeking healthcare and essential services, and furthermore constraining their economic participation even after they have been able to regain their health. However, considering when the problem isn't immediately apparent, I've had the opportunity to reflect among OECD nations in the United States and Canada that stand at the bottom of health inequity as measured by access to services based on income. And strikingly, coming from South Africa, where we profile race in our epidemiology studies so extensively, it was interesting to find that there isn't comprehensive racial demographics across the Canadian healthcare system. And this hinders our ability to quantify discrimination within the healthcare system at all levels, from a service delivery perspective and a workforce perspective. I present this stark contrast to challenge stereotypes and foster an environment of receptiveness for learning and growth, because it underscores our shared challenges despite the nuances across various different countries. The talent drain from the global south to the global north reveals the inequities brought upon by misdirected economic incentives. For instance, India boasts a nurse to population ratio of 1.96 to 1,000, while the UK stands at 7 nurses per 1,000, with the global average being 3 nurses per 1,000. And the moral dilemma surrounding this talent drain and its potential repercussions, especially during the global healthcare crisis, forces us to rethink our strategies. Intriguingly, when looking into this a bit more closely, we find that even countries like the UK underfund the development of their own healthcare workforce. In England, the influx of foreign doctors has nearly doubled since 2018, while the increase in British medical trainees is a mere 17%. I don't want to disalarm you with all these discouraging with some of these things, but I also want to leave you with some positive sentiments. We are seeing some shifts happening. There's whole entire movement around FEM health tech space that is blossoming with innovations like next-way technology, a modified bra that helps to aid breast cancer detection. We're seeing life sciences companies that are showing and developing products that are able to withstand high heat temperatures during transit and shortage, thus increasing product stability. And we are also embracing indigenous medicines like moringa to combat malnutrition. In the realm of healthcare, our designs hold fatal flaws, designed and authored by individuals like you and me. However, this realization is also empowering, for it suggests that we possess the agency to craft an equal and resilient healthcare system. So I leave you with know your reality, commit to development for generations that come after us, embrace technology and our indigenous teachings, master the art of operating in an environment of constraints. Thank you.
Thank you, Harsha, and thank you for bringing at least some sunshine to the gloomy picture that we've been painting thus far. So it is, I think, it is good to know. I know once I spoke to one of my colleagues, and she's listening today, Susan Goldstein, and I said to her, "It seems like it's just getting worse, Sue." And Sue said, "No, it's not." And she gave me a book to read, and she said, "Look how far we have come. It's not all doom and gloom." And so sometimes we do forget that. So thank you for highlighting those those positives. I'm now going to move to Rodrigo Tobias. Rodrigo Tobias de Sousa Lima is the full name, and Rodrigo is from Fiocruz, Amazonia, and he'll be speaking to us today. Rodrigo.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Rodrigo Tobias, and I think I want to speak about what kind of research we have to develop, observing especially the equitable health systems in specific territories. So we think the development of research is based on a production of scientific evidence and results that seek to respond to the needs of the population, specifically in Amazon region. In the sense, the construction of dialogue between researchers, health managers, and population have been one of the main strategies for the construction of the pertinent knowledge implicated in the development of public policies specific in Amazon region, aiming at the sustainability of humans and non-humans, or to use the cosmologies of the indigenous peoples and sustainability among the different peoples that live in our universe. This kind of research has principles like equity, environmental justice, health promotion, production of social care networks, social participation and autonomy of the subjects that live in riversides, Quilombola, original Black people, and indigenous areas, and in the cities. Thus, it's necessary to investigate both the ways of life, the different knowledge as with midwives and shamans, the public policies, the models of healthcare and system management that can collaborate with the strengthening of the Amazon health system. As a research institution, we are committed to the inclusion of people or population groups, to participation and to ways of life that promote a good life in the different territories of Amazon. In the sense, our research has worked with different social groups in region, traditional midwives, indigenous and non-indigenous peoples, through organizational support for the strengthening of the practice, the indigenous medicines specialists for the recognition of this care that involves food, dance, songs, crafts, and the use of medicinal plants. The Quilombola or Black original people populations that aims the recognition of these territories as place to live, the recognition of the organization of the riverside populations as producers of a knowledge that dialogues with the dynamic of waters and its different hydric periods. Thus, this research seek a solidary and participatory construction of knowledge to value and strengthen ways of life that are guided by the powerful idea of good living, or buen vivir, or bem viver in Portuguese. So in the end, we understand the science that we have to develop in SHEM's assembly, I think, has to the commitment to be guided by the logic of ecology of knowledge in encounter between different epistemes in the rights of nature, democracy, and social development. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. I think your sentiments tie in really well with everyone who has come before you, in that there is so much wisdom from the people who we are aiming to represent, and that we really do need, via all of our processes, all the way to research, to involve them in what it is that we are purporting to do for the betterment of these societies. So as a final, we have a statement from our colleague and SHEM supporter, Paulo Bus, also from Fiocruz, but he was unfortunately unable to join us today. So Luis is going to kindly, my words have now failed me, yeah. Kindly read out his.
Thank you, Atia. Paulo had a difficult to be present today, but he sent me a message asking me to read to you. So I'll do this. As an old participant in the movement, I'm very pleased with SHEM's progress in the global arena, with active participation in several relevant international forums, carrying the message that social and health equities is non-negotiable. The current political, social, economic, environmental, and health situations are serious globally, with a deepening of inequalities in all these spheres of life in society. The richest nations on the planet insist on ignoring the need for urgent action, despite the warnings and cries of global civil society, including SHEM. The crisis of the multilateral systems and the indifference of member states towards it deeply hinder the implementation of a true civilizing process resulting from solidarity and international cooperation. As an institution that is part of SHEM, we have thought to act permanently in the promotion of a fair and equitable international social and economic order. Through the systematic monitoring of the various multilateral and plurilateral bodies, such as the various instances of the United Nations, and group of countries such as the G7, G20, G77, Non-Aligned Movement, BRICS, and also global social movements, we have been able to see more clearly global injustices of all orders and to denounce them. We do this through the fortnightly advanced seminars on global health and health diplomacy, and also through the bi-weekly edition of the CRIS reports on global health and health diplomacy. Since in March 2020, we have held more than 70 seminars and produced more than 70 analytical reports explaining our principles and proposals for achieving global social, economic, environmental, and health equity. All our initiatives have split the sponsorship of SHEM, to whom we attribute this important role of amalgamating initiatives in all parts of the world. We have favorable expectations here in Brazil regarding the actions and measures taken by President Lula's government in favor of equity and social justice. The new government has promoted a courageous reform process to expand equitable access to health, education, food, and a clean environment based on the concepts of sustainability. The most recent example was given by the Amazon Summit, which brought together presidents, government officials, and civil society of the 8 Amazon countries in search of political consensus and identification of practices that promote equity. As of December 2023, Brazil occupied the temporary presidency of the G20, and from now on, we are demanding from the Brazilian government an agenda of proposal whose center is occupied by equity as the greater good and the fair and sustainable instruments that, in fact, include everyone, with particular attention to those historically excluded, the poor, indigenous peoples, African descent people, women, the elderly, and children. SHEM's orientation has always been clear: think globally and act globally, but also think and act locally. We have to add the experience of our local actions to global positions and actions, and vice versa. Thank you. I end here my words as an old SHEM militant, appealing that we do not give up and make the fight for political, social, economic, environmental, and health equity a great motivation for our personal lives and for our institutions. That's for Paulo Bus. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. I like Paulo's very strong language. I think is a really great call to action for everyone. As I wrap up, I'd like to, before I give my final words, I'd like to just thank our panelists today. I'm very pleased to have seen that we have had varying perspectives, different gradients of somewhat similar thoughts and similar views. And it was very easy for me in a way to take out some of the common learnings, the common leanings between the varied perspectives that we had today and the varied content. I would like to say, we know, as I think Alia said, inequity is not a new concept, and despite the progresses in the world, and thank you, Harsha, for highlighting some of that, and as a result of, I think, some of these progresses, we are still seeing continued inequity and in many spheres. The recent COVID-19 pandemic, as Sir Michael Marmot has highlighted, served to shine a spotlight on structural inequities present in terms of health, financing, gendered access to healthcare, and marginalized populations. This is all against the backdrop of continued climate instability, the effect of which we are only beginning to see in the world. And we are sure that these are going to only worsen inequities, both in who benefits from these activities, but also those who are disadvantaged from the activities that have dire consequences. As a global community, we need a plan that not only spurs political will, as the call to actions from many of you today, but goes beyond our leaders to a sustainable and practical agenda that supersedes the fluidity of politics and the political economy. We need grassroots action, which many of you have spoken to, Rodrigo, Alessandro from the emerging practitioners, and that is very specific to the local context and accountability of those who are charged with decision-making. We hope that the Assembly today begins not only a new round of conversations, and I hope that this was a platform not only for SHEM to hear from all of you, but for all of you to connect with each other and take this work forward in your own spaces, but also that we will bring together not only joint efforts, but tangible action from those present today and your networks. And as I've said many times, I'm so glad that we've had a range of voices, but we are all still cognizant that there are some people who are not represented here today. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to hand over back to Luis.
Thank you very much, Atia. Congratulations for conducting so well this panel, very important discussion. Now we'd like to go back to the presentation of our partners. So it's my pleasure to invite Marie Studer from the Planetary Health Alliance to present her comment about the Planetary Health Alliance, what that has been done a great job, actually. Please, Marie.
Thank you so much. It's my sincere pleasure to be here and to listen to all of the presentations that came before. Andre, I think that you'll be going through the slides. Thank you so much. For those of you who are new to planetary health is the recognition that the multiple Earth crises of climate change, biodiversity loss, land use change, and so on, are driving a global health and humanitarian crisis. And we can no longer safeguard the future of humanity unless we stabilize Earth's natural systems and we transition how we live on Earth. And this absolutely encompasses creating more just and equitable societies. It's that which is a central component to planetary health. Next slide, please. Today, I just want to tell you about 4 initiatives that relate to the question that was put out about what are we doing to create an actionable agenda to make sustainable and change for the world. I'm going to speak about 4 initiatives, and we can move on to the next slide, please. The first one I want to tell you about is Connecting Climate Minds. This is a global effort which is focused on catalyzing a global research and policy community at the intersection of climate change and mental health. The Planetary Health Alliance is the regional convening coordinator for North America and Europe, but we are part of this global effort, which is led by Climate Cares at Imperial College London. The idea is to be absolutely responsive to the lived experiences of those with worsened mental health in the context of climate crisis and, in fact, in the context of global environmental change. The idea is to also connect globally a connected community of practice in order to address these issues of mental health and global environmental change. I've put the links in the slides, and Andre will also be able to send them out later for anyone who wants to learn more about these. Next slide, please. The next initiative is our Planetary Health Expand education effort. There is a call that World Federation for Public Health Associations and other has put out really that states there is no public health without planetary health. In order to address this, the Planetary Health Alliance is trying to mobilize the global health and development communities to integrate planetary health curriculum into medical, nursing, and public health education systems. And we are actively working on this endeavor. And so if anyone is also interested in this, please do reach out or learn more about the Expand program. The part that is important about this is it's not only to educate these practitioners to take care of their patients, but also to help activate them as advocates for policy change and systems change. I also want to draw attention to the Academic Health Institution's Declaration on Planetary Health. I put a link to that in the chat earlier. This is led by the Association of Faculties of Medicine of Canada, which has declared that the health of the planet a code red emergency and calls for immediate implementation of planetary health education and research and the transition to climate resilient and low carbon health systems in order to build a healthy, sustainable, and just future for all. So please do join us in these endeavors of both the declaration and the education initiatives. May I have the next slide, please? The Planetary Health Alliance and Planetary Health is an ally with our Indigenous colleagues and brothers and sisters around the world. We want to welcome and support the leadership of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in shaping a new narrative and to promote the indigenous determinants of health literature and the indigenous determinants of health in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development work. This is a critical complement to the body of work on public and global health, and also a very concrete application of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The Planetary Health Alliance has a policy note, which is listed here in terms of the link, that we welcome people to look at, to cite, and to put out further in order to uplift and support this connection between Indigenous concepts and determinants of health and the planetary health framework as well. Next slide, please. The last initiative I want to tell you about now is the upcoming 2024 Planetary Health Alliance annual meeting. It will take place next April at the Sunway Center for Planetary Health in Malaysia. I'm telling about it to you now because there are currently in 2023 working groups, calls for abstracts, and registration is available. The primary outcome of this annual meeting will be a global planetary health roadmap to influence policies and behavioral norms to bridge health, environment, and society for a thriving future. There are currently 4 working groups that are feeding into the creation of this roadmap. They're in the areas of governance and policy, communications and building new narratives, education, and private sector engagement. Throughout this, as an underpinning of all of this work, is equity and social justice. So that's just an overarching narrative that runs through all of these. Please do visit this link to learn more about the annual meeting, to register for it, and also to see the calls for abstracts that with the deadline of September 15th to send something in. And please do contact me if you're interested in the working group efforts. With that, I'll end, but want to thank you again for all of the work that SHEM is doing around the world. We are so honored and grateful for that opportunity to work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie. It's very good to see that Planetary Health Alliance and SHEM, all other organizations are converging the need for an actionable equity, health and sustainable health equity. So it's the general theme of the next in Malaysia, the encounter of the Planetary Health Alliance. Thank you very much. I'd like now to ask Gustavo, please, to share the video by Bettina Borish from the World Federation of Public Health Associations, our CEO, that will comment on the activities of the World Federation.
I am Professor Bettina Borish, the Executive Director of the World Federation of Public Health Associations. Our current president, Professor Luis Eugenio de Souza, asked me to give you
the image. I'm not seeing Gustavo. We can hear Bettina, but we can't hear. We can't see.
Let me try again.
I am Professor Bettina Borish, the Executive Director of the World Federation of Public Health Associations. Our current president, Professor Luis Eugenio de Souza, asked me to give you an overview of the recent activities of the Federation. Difficult task, as there are many things that would be worthwhile reporting. But talking to you at SHEM, I'll try to underline those of our activities that pertain directly to sustainable health equity. I have chosen the World Congress on Public Health, our work on the Pandemic Treaty, and the UN General Assembly. In May 23, over 3,000 public health professionals, researchers, policymakers, and students convened in Rome, Italy for the 17th Congress on Public Health, an event organized by the World Federation in association with its local public health association, the Italian Society of Hygiene, Preventive Medicine and Public Health, and the Association of Schools of Public Health in the European region, ASPHER. The theme of the Congress, A World in Turmoil, Opportunities to Focus on the Public's Health, reflected our commitment as the global community to work together in and outside of our respective fields to promote health equity and to build a more sustainable and just future. 3 days are not enough to solve the world's health problems, but they may remind us of the potential of the public health community, particularly in difficult moments called crisis. Let me cite some of the keynote session's topics. One Health, planetary health. We need a new understanding of health for all. That means the animals, the plants, the whole ecosystem of living organisms, including humans. We were reminded of the increasing inequities, the threat that this poses to democracy, and the fact that the poor ones are always the most vulnerable.
Just 1 second, Luis. I'm so sorry. I just found an error here in our transmission. I will do it again. 1 second. Just 1 second, please.
Needed. Also in the field of digital health, inequities are a main point. We have to pay attention to the fact that inequity should not be enlarged by the new technologies. Mental health, vaccine confidence, as well as the ongoing multilateral discussions on IHR and pandemic treaty were topics. I propose to the audience to give some thought to wars, purely man-made disaster that needs our public health action. We have to raise our voices against a global political system based on the right to inflict violence as a means of gaining power. The patriarchal mindset has led to the normalization of this way of doing. Let's go to the pandemic treaty. You know that in December 21, the second ever special session of the World Health Assembly established an intergovernmental negotiating body, INB, to draft and negotiate a convention, agreement, or other international instrument to strengthen pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. The INB's work is based on the principles of inclusiveness, transparency, efficiency, member states' leadership, and consensus. The 6th meeting of this INB was just held in July of this year. And according to the process, the draft for a pandemic accord should be final for consideration in May 24. We at the World Federation follow the process, submit statements, first to the collection of topics and now to the direction that the discussion on the so-called zero draft is taking. Our objective is always sustainable health equity. In parallel, there is the work on the international health regulations. We work there too. Both occasions leave, as to our understanding, a limited space for civil society. But this is a topic of its own. And lastly, we also work to prepare our presence and our statements for the UN General Assembly to be held this year in September. All our activities are done in close collaboration with like-minded partner organizations, which I do not have the time to mention all. But let me thank you for your attention.
Thank you to Bettina for the presentation of the activities of the World Federation. Now I'd like to invite our executive member of the committee, Andrea Leite, that will present what we are suggesting as activities for the upcoming year. Please, Andrea, over to you.
We can hear you, Andrea.
Welcome to World of Technology. I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is André Salles, and I'm a member of SHEM Executive Committee team. I'm the head of communication and strategic relation, and together with Gustavo Bus and Diana Zambelos, we are the team responsible for trying to make the structural decisions and help things to happen during the SHEM movement. We are the ones that have been trying to handle all this technological drama that we have. So I'm sorry for the issues you have, but we are glad to be here with you today. And we are glad that you are here. Listen about our efforts in the previous year and about our intentions for the next year. Gustavo, can you please show the next slide, please? Yeah, I would like to repeat what we stand for, because I feel like through all the presentations here, through all the panelists, through all the partners that engaged in our assembly, you see this effort of, okay, this is not the best version of the world, and it's not the last one. And if you want to have another one, a world in which we can live, we need to address simultaneously the climate crisis and the immoral inequality. So the sustainable health equity calls for health and environmental policies that are globally sustainable and decolonized to create conditions for all people in future generations to attain the highest attainable standards of health. This is a broader intention, and we think that we need a broader intention in times of crisis, because the needs we are trying to address are also broad. So that's what we are standing for. We take this version from our statement/declaration, the ones you heard about, and I believe that you're gonna be working with the people who were here with us to make this particular directions of actions. And can you go to the next one? Boom. And I feel like our challenge to make this happen, we can talk about your strategic goals for the coming year as related to external issues and demands and more internal ones. Externally, we are trying to transform sustainable health equity from a principle into an action-oriented agenda that currently address environmental sustainability and health equity. And most of our, I will call them partners, the institutions and the panelists have talked about the necessity to go to the public policies to occupy the space of multilateral governance so that we can make people more aware of what you're talking and try to change the way that we see our actions. This is our broader external goal that we share with the other partners. But internally, if you want to keep going, keep building and keep working as a global social movement that embrace technology and that connects people from different parts of the world, we need to enhance our internal infrastructure, enabling us to connect national and regional demands effectively and needs with the global space for decision and discussions. SHEM wants to be a channel, something that helps us to connect these global problems, this global space and arena with the local level of action of the local organization and regional initiatives, such as the ones that we heard here today. Can you go to the next one, Boo? Can you pass this? Thank you. So we are listing what we call some technical moves. Externally, we want to promote national and regional events to discuss SHEM concept notes and the declaration with partner and allies. A lot of people were talking about raising awareness, and we think that this is a way to do this, and we'd like to be doing this in the next 11 months. We want to collaborate with institutions that are members of the SHEM steering committee to organize seminars and online training highlighting the necessity of addressing environmental and sustainability and health equity at the same time. I feel like that's a challenge that we've been pursuing, that we want to keep putting our efforts on this. We want to advocate for sustainable health equity with the multilateral space, such as United Nations General Assembly, the World Health Assembly, the United Nations Human Rights Council, and the Economic and Social Council that are about to happen in the next 11 months. And we want, and that's something that you may have noted, we want to explore the intersection of sustainable health equity framework, because we are proposing a framework, a way to look at these issues, with other comprehensive and emerging frameworks, such as One Health and Planetary Health. We want to explore and embrace these potentialities to make our joint efforts more successful. Can you go to the next one, Google? And to make this, we wanted to work a little bit on our internal structure, and I'm someone that's been advocating for an approval of SHEM bylaws and organizational agreements so that we can understand how we can work effectively. We want to support the activities of human rights and governance thematic working groups. You heard about these two working groups. Those are the ones that are still more active today. And for our finalists that were making suggestions, we would love to have you join our working groups and helping us to work in this space, because this is SHEM's most important dispositive to engage with the broader community. We want to nurture the development of the equity concepts and metrics working group. This was proposed last assembly, and we are still trying to work on that so we can have a better understanding and dispute the concepts of health and equity in a way that becomes more and more inclusive. We will keep our monthly publications of the SHEM highlights and the newest released news from the field. We want to improve our alliance with other networks and social movement organizations so that we join this ecosystem of movements that are already fighting for agendas that are very close to ours. And we want to enhance the steering committee meetings with political and theoretical discussions about the fundamental issues in sustainability and health equity. We feel like with the statical moves internally, we're going to be better prepared in the next 11 months to deal with the challenge that we have in our external activities. Can you pass me? Thank you very much. That's our website. I will also post it on YouTube channel. You can access us. All the material that's been talking you will be there. And that's one of the most effective ways to get in touch with us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andre. Of course, that's a list of proposals that will depend, its concretization, its application will depend on the capacity that you have to be together, to remain together and working to around these principles and these ideas. I remember that next week on Friday, you are all invited. We are going to have a next meeting of the steering committee that we will try to operationalize all these activities on next Friday. We'll be briefing this assembly and organizing ourselves for the next steps. I would like to coming to a close of this meeting to thank you all for being here. And remember that we have a very strong declaration that was presented and well discussed today. And it's our commitment to spread the word, to diffuse this declaration in all our networks. We are here several organizations from each one of it with different networks, partners, associations, organizations that are together, so we can really spread this declaration very strongly, very broadly, in all regions of the world. And remembering that, as it is said in the end, we urge governments to incorporate the right to health in all policies and practice, both domestically and in international agreements, and policy and actions with extraterritorial impact, and also to cut carbon emissions both at home and abroad immediately. That's the message that we are committed to diffuse. Remembering that in the next month, in September, we're going to, the United Nations will gather in this General Assembly, and we'll try also to make these declarations to be presented at the space that are allowed to civil society organizations to occupy during the General Assembly of the United Nations. We live, as I think we all agree, in a very, very strong crisis, a multidimensional crisis, health, environmental, socio-economic, wars, as Bettina has highlighted, a very critical moment. And unfortunately, we see that states member governments and states from the multilateral system are not acting enough with activities to mitigate and to face all these crises. So the role of civil society is very important as never before. So we had other moments in the history of humanity that civil society was very important to change things. I think now we are living one of these moments. We cannot not accept that government and corporations still funding and expand the exploration of fossil fuel as they are in several countries in the world are planning to do this. So I think the future of humanity, the future of the planet depends a lot on the activities of civil society. And today we can see, I think we can, as Rocio has mentioned in the chat, here, we can end with this new slogan, as she's put so well, equity, just do it. That's the message. I thank you all for being here and hope to see you soon next Friday on the steering committee of the SHEM meeting. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend.